Tonight's breaking story may redefine celebrity contracts, royal credibility, and the limits of influence in modern media. What began quietly behind sealed doors has now exploded into one of the most dramatic confrontations the entertainment industry has seen in years. At the center of it all, Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, Netflix, and a move that no one in Hollywood expected. This is not just a lawsuit. This is a reckoning. At 9:15 a.m. on January 31, 2026, two sealed envelopes left Netflix headquarters in Los Gatos, California. One envelope was routed to the Superior Court of Los Angeles. The other traveled across the Atlantic to Kensington Palace. Two letters, two very different messages, and one clear signal that Netflix had drawn a line. The first envelope carried a formal legal filing, Netflix versus Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, a high-stakes breach of contract lawsuit seeking $100 million in damages. According to Netflix, the case represents one of the most serious contractual failures in modern entertainment. The second envelope was not a legal threat. It was an invitation, a proposal addressed to Catherine, Princess of Wales, inviting her to lead a new educational documentary project focused on history, heritage, social responsibility, and public service. One letter accused, the other invited, and together they revealed a brutal truth. Netflix had lost patience with prestige that failed to deliver substance. How it all began. The seeds of this conflict were planted back in September 2020 when Prince Harry and Meghan Markle signed a highly publicized 5-year exclusive production deal with Netflix. The agreement was ambitious. Harry and Meghan committed to producing between 8 and 10 premium content projects, spanning documentaries, scripted series, feature-length productions, children's programming. In exchange, Netflix advanced $40 million upfront, with the total package potentially reaching $100 million, depending on performance and delivery. At the time, the deal was framed as groundbreaking. Hollywood believed it was buying insight, authenticity, and royal-level access. What Netflix says it actually received was something very different. 4 years in, the numbers didn't add up. By January 2025, nearly 4 years into the deal, Netflix conducted an internal audit of the Sussex output. The results were damning. Out of the promised slate, only 3 documentary-style projects had been released. One 6-episode series delayed multiple times and heavily re-edited. One sports-related documentary that underperformed. One leadership-themed series where Harry and Meghan reportedly had minimal hands-on involvement. One internal Netflix memo reportedly described the partnership as high-profile, low-output, and structurally unworkable. That memo would later become part of the legal record. And then came the second letter. While the legal team prepared the lawsuit, Netflix executives made a second move, one that would shock both Hollywood and royal watchers. They reached out to Catherine, Princess of Wales, not with a contract dispute, but with a vision, a proposed educational documentary project centered on history, heritage, children's development, mental health, environmental stewardship, and social responsibility. The idea was to build content rooted in public service, credibility, and long-term impact, not celebrity branding. Sources familiar with the proposal say the project was designed with clear deliverables, educational outcomes, and partnerships with respected institutions. Netflix had learned its lesson. Prestige alone was no longer enough. A tale of two paths. The contrast could not have been sharper. On one side, a lawsuit, allegations of breach and misrepresentation, financial exposure reaching 9 figures. On the other, an invitation, a carefully structured proposal, a long-term vision focused on education and trust. 2 letters, 2 reputations, 2 futures. And when news of Netflix's dual move leaked to the press, the reaction was immediate and explosive. Fallout begins.
According to sources close to the Sussex household, the news landed like a thunderbolt. What was meant to be a private legal escalation had suddenly become a public comparison, and not one that worked in their favor. Industry insiders began asking uncomfortable questions. Why had so much money produced so little output? Why were other streaming platforms suddenly distancing themselves? And why was Netflix now looking elsewhere for credibility? The answers would only grow more troubling as the story unfolded. And as the capital storyline continues this investigation, one thing is already clear. This is no longer just about entertainment. It's about accountability, credibility, and what happens when influence is tested against results and found wanting.
As news of Netflix's lawsuit and its outreach to the Princess of Wales spread across media networks, the reaction inside Montecito was anything but calm. According to multiple industry sources, the Sussex household entered full crisis containment mode within hours of the January 31st revelations. Phones were lit up, advisors were summoned, emergency meetings were scheduled behind closed doors. For Harry and Meghan, this was not just bad press, it was an existential threat. Because for the first time since leaving royal life, they were facing a reality they could no longer control with messaging alone. Inside the emergency strategy session, sources familiar with the situation describe a hastily organized meeting that same evening involving two senior entertainment lawyers, a former communications executive from their foundation team, and external streaming industry consultant. The central question was blunt and urgent. Could pressure be applied to force Netflix into negotiation or retreat? The answer, according to those present, was deeply troubling. Netflix was not bluffing, and the leverage Harry and Meghan once held was gone. The audio clip that changed everything. Within 24 hours, rumors began circulating through entertainment circles about a previously unreleased audio recording. The clip allegedly dated back to 2022 during a private development call between Meghan Markle and Netflix executives. In the recording, Meghan is said to express frustration over creative pushback on one of her proposed children's projects, accusing a producer of cultural insensitivity and dismissiveness. At one point, Meghan allegedly says, "You wouldn't speak this way if this were Catherine. You wouldn't question her vision. With me, everything is a fight." Those familiar with the audio describe it as emotionally charged, accusatory, and uncomfortable, but not evidence of institutional discrimination. Still, within Meghan's inner circle, the clip was reportedly viewed as a potential weapon, not to win the lawsuit outright, but to shift the narrative. A risky gamble. According to a private message later obtained by a royal columnist, Meghan allegedly wrote, "If they're offering projects to her while dragging us through court, then let's talk about the conversations they don't want public." But legal experts quickly warned this approach could backfire catastrophically. Contract attorney Eliza Mendeley explained, "Using confidential materials outside the legal discovery process can trigger counterclaims. It also strengthens Netflix's argument that boundaries were repeatedly violated." In other words, what Meghan saw as leverage, Netflix could see as confirmation. Hollywood's doors quietly close. If Meghan hoped to rally industry allies, the response was colder than expected. Within hours of the Catherine proposal becoming public, both Amazon Studios and Apple TV Plus issued quiet denials of any active negotiations with the Sussex team. One Apple insider told Deadline simply, "We're not engaged. We've moved on." No press release, no drama, just distance. And that silence spoke volumes. Old labels resurface. Immediately, social media reignited around a phrase many thought had faded into the past. A resurfaced clip from 2023 when a former Spotify executive publicly described Harry and Meghan as high-profile but unproductive went viral once again. The quote exploded across platforms, amassing millions of views within hours. For critics, it confirmed a pattern. For supporters, it was deeply damaging. Either way, the label stuck. Behind the scenes,
industry sentiment turns. Executives from two major production houses, speaking anonymously, shared a harsher assessment. The risk profile is too high, the return just isn't there. Another added, every project comes with controversy, delays, and control issues. No one wants that right now. Even inside Netflix, morale had reportedly suffered. Staff members once excited to work on Sussex projects later described the experience as draining and directionless. One internal comment described the partnership years as a prestige deal that became a productivity vacuum. When the strategy turns personal, as professional options narrowed, the response from Meghan's camp reportedly shifted in tone. What began as legal strategy became personal grievance. Over the next 48 hours, whispers began circulating online suggesting that the Princess of Wales had been in covert discussions with Netflix for months. The accusation was firm and false. Both Netflix and Palace officials denied it outright. Netflix's legal team reportedly labeled the claim fictional and unsupported, but the narrative persisted across Sussex-aligned platforms. According to one former advisor, Meghan privately insisted, "They took our model. She's doing exactly what they criticized me for." The irony did not go unnoticed. Public sentiment shifts in the opposite direction. A Sky News commentator summarized it bluntly. It's difficult to accuse someone of stealing credibility when they've spent years building it through visible service. The contrast was becoming impossible to ignore. One side responded with claims and counterclaims. The other released a public schedule. Pressure builds. Deadlines loom. As of February 1, 2026, Harry and Meghan's legal team had not yet filed a formal response to Netflix's complaint, but the clock was ticking. According to court procedure, if no substantive reply or settlement framework emerges by mid-February, Netflix is expected to escalate aggressively. That escalation could include subpoenas for internal emails, financial disclosures, production records, communications with third-party partners, and, perhaps most damaging of all, records from their foundation operations. To make matters worse, their largest remaining philanthropic backer, a Silicon Valley donor collective, has suspended future contributions pending the lawsuit's outcome. The ripple effects were no longer theoretical. They were real. More than a business dispute. What began as a contract disagreement had become something larger, a referendum, not just on Harry and Meghan, but on whether celebrity alone can override accountability. And as the capital storyline tracks this unfolding drama, one conclusion is becoming increasingly clear. Narrative control only works when credibility remains intact. And right now, that credibility is slipping. Fast.
While Meghan Markle scrambled to contain fallout through counterclaims and strategic deflection, a very different story was unfolding quietly, without press leaks, without accusations, and without spectacle. Netflix's outreach to the Princess of Wales did not emerge from rivalry or revenge. It emerged from exhaustion. After years of navigating high-profile partnerships that produced more controversy than content, the streaming giant reassessed its priorities. What executives wanted next was not noise. They wanted trust. And in that recalibration, one name stood apart. This wasn't sudden, it was inevitable. The proposal delivered to Kensington Palace on January 31, 2026, did not arrive in isolation. It was the culmination of years of consistent public work that required no rebranding, no reinvention, and no justification. Just 3 weeks earlier, on January 9, 2026, Catherine marked her 44th birthday with a public message that quietly resonated around the world. In it, she spoke of learning, empathy, continuity, and responsibility. No buzzwords, no self-promotion, no platform building, just a statement of purpose. Industry observers would later note how closely her words aligned with the Netflix proposal that followed, almost as if the direction had already been set long before the cameras arrived. A record built on work, not optics. For more than a decade, Catherine's public role has followed a consistent pattern: deep engagement, measurable outcomes, and follow-through. Her work in early childhood development has been especially influential. Through long-term research initiatives, partnerships with universities, and on-the-ground visits across the UK, she is focused on how the first years of life shape emotional resilience, education outcomes, and societal health. This wasn't theoretical advocacy. It involved visiting dozens of early learning centers, supporting evidence-based research, translating academic insight into public understanding. Experts repeatedly praised her ability to bridge science and storytelling, an ability Netflix executives were actively seeking. Mental health without branding. Her involvement in mental health awareness followed the same philosophy. Rather than positioning herself as the face of a movement, Catherine emphasized collaboration, working alongside professionals, charities, and communities already doing the work. Crisis support initiatives, youth mental health access, and community-based outreach programs all benefited from sustained involvement rather than headline moments. Netflix's internal proposal reportedly highlighted this exact point. No controversy, no polarization, no volatility, just reliability. Why Netflix needed a reset? Internally, Netflix had reached a conclusion after the Sussex experience. Visibility without structure was a liability. According to leaked briefing notes, executives wanted future documentary projects to meet three non-negotiable standards: clear deliverables, stable leadership, and demonstrable public value. The new proposal emphasized education, social cohesion, and historical understanding, areas where Catherine's work already had established credibility. The concept was not built around personality, it was built around purpose. The project vision. The proposed documentary series was structured as a multi-episode educational journey, each segment anchored in real-world engagement rather than abstract commentary. Planned themes included early learning and identity formation, historical literacy and societal memory, care for the elderly and intergenerational connection, environmental responsibility through education, community resilience and recovery. Each episode was designed with defined educational outcomes, expert collaboration, and institutional partnerships. Netflix wanted substance that could not be questioned, and Catherine's track record offered exactly that. Reaction from media and institutions. The response was immediate and strikingly positive. British media outlets emphasized the seriousness and depth of the proposal rather than its novelty. International coverage described Catherine as a figure of continuity in a fragmented media environment. One editorial framed it succinctly: "She doesn't chase relevance, relevance follows her." Cultural institutions reportedly expressed early interest in collaboration, including museums, educational trusts, and humanitarian organizations. The appeal was obvious. This was not celebrity-driven programming. It was public interest storytelling. A stark contrast in approaches. As headlines focused on lawsuits and allegations, Catherine's team released something far less dramatic, but far more powerful: a schedule. Site visits, educational symposiums, community engagements. No rebuttals, no accusations, no commentary. Just work. And as one senior observer noted, silence carries weight when your record speaks. Why this shift mattered. For Netflix, this was not about replacing one royal with another, it was about correcting course. Executives understood that their brand, like any global institution, is shaped by who they partner with and why. After years of reputational turbulence tied to high-profile figures who blurred the line between storytelling and self-interest, Netflix needed to re-anchor its documentary slate in credibility. Catherine offered something rare in modern media: predictability. Not dullness, not passivity, but consistency. The bigger picture.
For the public, the contrast was becoming unavoidable. On one side, emergency meetings, leaks and counter-leaks, accusations and defensiveness. On the other, long-term planning, institutional collaboration, quiet momentum. As the capital storyline continues to follow this unfolding chapter, one truth is becoming clear. Influence sustained by service outlasts influence sustained by outrage. And while one narrative struggled to survive scrutiny, another grew stronger by never needing to explain itself at all.
As the public narrative fractured into lawsuits, accusations, and silence from former allies, the story reached a point where no spin could soften what was coming next. This was no longer a media clash, it was enforceable law, and the consequences were severe. The king breaks the pattern. On the evening of January 31st, 2026, just hours after headlines split between Netflix's lawsuit and its outreach to the Princess of Wales, Buckingham Palace did something extraordinary. It spoke. In a rare, unscheduled communication released shortly before 6 p.m. GMT, King Charles III made his position unmistakably clear. Without naming Meghan Markle directly, the statement defended Catherine's integrity, rejected accusations of improper conduct, and supported partnerships rooted in education, service, and public benefit. The message was calm, measured, and devastating. A senior palace source later described it as a line being drawn, not in anger, but in principle. Why this moment was different? For decades, the royal family lived by a single rule: never complain, never explain. But the media environment had changed, and according to insiders, the king had reached a breaking point. Briefed earlier that week on Netflix's lawsuit, missed deliverables, and allegations that Meghan had privately demanded Netflix halt discussions with Catherine, Charles reportedly responded with visible frustration. "The institution does not exist to protect negligence," one aide recalled him saying. What followed was not just a defense, it was a declaration of direction. A new royal strategy emerges. Behind palace walls, officials describe this moment as the beginning of a more assertive approach to media engagement. Not louder, not reactionary, but deliberate. The monarchy would no longer allow its credibility to be undermined by external narratives that blurred accountability. Educational partnerships would be embraced, public value storytelling would be supported, and credibility, not controversy, would determine access. Netflix, once viewed with caution, was now seen as a platform, neutral by default, powerful by reach. And power, as the king understood, must be guided, not feared. The legal reality for Harry and Meghan. Meanwhile, the lawsuit continued to advance. Netflix's 47-page complaint, filed in Los Angeles Superior Court, outlined 5 core claims. Breach of contract. The Sussexes failed to deliver the minimum number and quality of projects outlined in their agreement. Violation of good faith. Internal correspondence allegedly shows repeated disengagement, refusal to collaborate, and abandonment of agreed schedules. Intentional misrepresentation. Netflix claims the couple used the deal primarily to enhance personal brand leverage rather than to fulfill production commitments. Unjust enrichment. $40 million paid, with only $25 million in deliverables produced. Declaratory relief. Netflix seeks to terminate remaining obligations and prevent future claims. This was not a symbolic lawsuit. It was meticulously built. Why this case is dangerous. Legal analysts warn that one allegation stands above the rest: fraud. If upheld, damages tied to intentional misrepresentation may not be dischargeable through bankruptcy. In plain terms, if Netflix wins on that count, Harry and Meghan could owe damages regardless of financial protection filings. That possibility has reshaped every calculation. Financial pressure mounts. Leaked assessments from consultants paint a grim picture. Annual costs tied to the Montecito estate alone reportedly exceed $8 million. Outstanding production expenses linked to unreleased material continue to drain resources.
Revenue from past ventures has declined sharply. In following negative publicity in 2025, several donors and commercial partners quietly withdrew. If the lawsuit escalates or settles above $30 million, financial restructuring may become unavoidable. Asset liquidation, private financing, or worse, each carries reputational cost. Public opinion shifts hard. Numbers tell stories words cannot. A YouGov poll published February 1, 2026 revealed 62% of UK respondents believe Netflix was justified in suing. Only 11% believe Harry and Meghan fulfilled their obligations. 72% support Netflix's educational collaboration with Catherine. The reversal is striking. In 2020, the Sussexes were framed as reformers. In 2026, many now see a pattern of overpromise and under-delivery. The final contrast. As Harry and Meghan prepared legal defenses, issued no public statements, and faced escalating scrutiny, Catherine did something far simpler. She worked. Her updated public calendar included educational symposiums, community visits, institutional collaborations, long-term initiatives with measurable outcomes. No commentary, no rebuttal, just continuity. And that difference mattered. What this story really means. This was never about choosing one royal over another. It was about choosing substance over symbolism. Netflix learned a lesson the hard way. Reputation does not replace reliability. The monarchy learned one too. Silence must sometimes yield to clarity. And the public, watching from every angle, saw something rare in modern media: accountability catching up to influence. Final words from the Capital storyline. As this chapter closes, one truth stands above the noise. Platforms amplify what already exists. They do not create credibility. That must be earned, slowly, visibly, and consistently. And in the collision between celebrity and responsibility, only one side proved durable. This has been the Capital storyline, and this story is far from over.